bit about who we are, about who I am, and then the rest of it's really about you, and I hope to give you at least one thing that you can walk away with that you can apply to your either personal life or business life or both that might be helpful to you. So I'm going to defer to, at times to have you look at the screen here. So the book is called The Art of the Nudge, and it is about unlocking potential, and I'll tell you more about that. But first, I'd like to share a little bit about my story. We all have a story, right? Oprah said so we must, right? For those that, sorry, I spent some time in a neck brace watching daytime television. Yeah, we all have a story, and my story is my story, and I'm sure it's no more interesting or compelling than yours, but it is this. So I studied psychology. Anybody study psychology? Good, one willing to admit it, 2, 3, yay. I see some of my peeps in the house. So I went into psychology for basically 3 reasons. One is that I certainly wanted to understand what made people tick. Did you share that for those of you who studied psychology? Yes, okay. 2, I didn't know math and science very well. Yes, Tyler?
No, I was good at math and science.
Okay, get out. All right. Well, I wasn't so good, so know thyself. That was part of psychology, right? And the third reason is really the reason we all go into psychology. And Tyler, do you know what that is? What's the real reason we study psychology?
To help others?
To help others, yes. Or lie to ourselves. Yes.
Understand women.
Understand women. How's that working out for you, Tyler? All right, well, we can unlock that potential, maybe. I don't know, we'll see. Well, they say denial just ain't a river in Egypt, and that's probably true. So the reason we really go into psychology is to understand the crazy from which we come, and so back to your therapist you go, Tyler. Figure that out. And, in all seriousness, we all come from crazy, I believe. It's just the level, just the extent of the crazy from which you come. And I come from a family where I had a mother who had some pretty serious psychological issues, depression, anxiety. She had shock treatment. That was back when it was very common. And, she was also charismatic and loving and warm and funny and all those things. But she had that side of her, and not, to no surprise, it was part of my job to make her feel better, try to help her, and I wasn't always successful with that. But it was definitely part of why I went into the field, because, no shock that I like helping other people and helping unlock potential. I couldn't always unlock my mom's. She was kind of stuck at a time when the resources were different, medicines were different, etc. So definitely an inspiration as to why I studied psychology, and I really like helping people, like I said, help themselves and unlock their own potential. And I believe that, understanding ourselves and the emotional intelligence quotient is a big part of that. So I spent most of my career in that field. I started as a family therapist at the age of 22. I was an in-home family therapist, knocking on people's doors out of college, right? No experience in Lancaster County. No Amish people, they don't let you in. But I would knock and, I'd go, hi, I'm Christine, I'll be your family therapist. And why they let me in their homes, I have none whatsoever, but desperation called and I answered. But it was the best and worst job I ever had. I hope you had at least one job like that in your life, because I think we all need to get the crap kicked out of us a little bit early on to get better. But I really learned a lot about people and a lot about how to work, and I loved what I was doing. I spent the first 5 years getting trained in a very kind of provocative way, one-way mirrors, people behind the mirror call in and say to the family, all kinds of stuff. And I loved it, but I didn't love the setting with which I was working. I really loved business. I knew I loved this, but I also knew I loved business because my dad was a self-made businessman. He grew up on a farm in Port Royal. Any Penn Staters here? Okay, you went by Port Royal every time you went to Penn State. You blinked, there it went, right? He grew up in that little town and got a degree at Penn State in agriculture. And then he came out selling chicken feed. They called him the chicken doctor. And then he parlayed that into a career in the insurance business and then became a financial planner. And he was an entrepreneur. So I wanted to combine those two things very badly, and I struggled for a while, as sometimes we make a career change after the first 5 years, and started working in the employee assistance field, for those of you who know what that is, where you work for a company that goes out and we provide counseling, but also a lot of training and development for companies, and that's how I made the shift. Fortunately, I was always trained along the way about how to get people's stories and tell stories, both from my background and then as in this EAP field. And then I started my own company where I started doing what we call executive coaching. Anybody have an executive coach? Okay, all right, yes, all right, or a therapist, as we like to call them. They're still a therapist, right, Annette? You know, so, but I did that in my own business for about 6 years, and then I met John, and that's really where our story began. John and I met in New York, not knowing that we lived 30 minutes from one another, and it really began with the word story. We were at a workshop. Actually, I was teaching that workshop at the time, just getting introduced to it. And he and I met, and we come from very different backgrounds. John's a military guy, right? West Point. It may shock you to know I haven't been in the military. Anybody, stay seated, it's okay. So he has quite a dynamic background. He's led large organizations. He's worked in small, very large companies running businesses. And you know, again, he's worked on the strategy in business, and I've worked on how people communicate. So different backgrounds, but we realized that we shared some pretty important beliefs. And some of those beliefs were this, that we believe that people had, you know, unlimited or untapped potential, as well as organizations. We both like bringing that potential out. We know that when you need to bring out the potential, you need to grow, and when you grow, you need to change, and change is difficult, change is hard, right? I always say if you get to this side of change and you get the results, then we're happy, but it's the process through which you have to go to get to the change, which isn't easy. So when we started tussling those things around, we realized that we really like to start working together, and so we spent some time together. And what we started to look at is we started to research different topics that we've been working with for a long time, but really got hunkered down around leadership, communication, and those kinds of things. Was that you know, when the world was changing, the world we started in business is not the world we're in now, right? I'm impressed nobody has a phone out right now. I appreciate that. I was walking through the Marriott at the Philly airport today, and 3 people were sitting next to each other like this. Mm-hmm. And so the pace of technology is staggering, which is happening. The millennials are here. They're the largest cohort. They're soon going to be the largest cohort, not only in the world, but in business. And, right? Yeah?
You just said raise your hand because his phone's on his lap.
That's right. It's close. Don't.
It's upside down. It's upside down.
May I see
And
it?
here you go. These are all my
May I
words.
touch it?
There you go.
All right, thank you. I'm going to get the phone at the window. You know what?
But you know,
Hey, David.
in my defense, I have how many employees right now working? So
David, are you
I'm
okay?
good.
Are you okay, David? Can you see? Now, if I take it out of sight, does that change the
seats? Do we want to be near him when he's without his phone?
It is what, I mean, you have employees that need you, right? I hear you. Right, so the millennials are here, right? And so it is very hard. We are connected all the time, and yet somehow we feel, I believe, we are more disconnected than ever. Anybody else feeling that? Absolutely, because what is changing? And so the pace with which the world is moving, thank you for letting me touch your phone. Now I can see the reluctance.
No, what was funny is I said this exact thing today to my we just hired a new office coordinator, and they said, I hate my phone. Because I feel like whereas I'm connected, I'm not real connected. So it's very interesting.
Yeah.
So far,
You know, how, you know, yeah, and so I think you're feeling a lot of what we're feeling, right? And it's hard to take a moment where you're going, you know what, I'm off, we're always on. So with all that, the way people are interacting, the way people are buying, the way people are relating is very different. And John and I were thinking, you know, how do we navigate in this new world, and how do we help people navigate? And as part of that, as I said, we studied leadership, communication, we studied the brain, behavioral economics, and did a lot of that. And what we thought was, what if we can codify this in a way that we can help people learn to pivot more quickly? And so that's the work we've been doing, and what we have come to figure out is that as part of our framework, and that's what we call it, is a leadership, communication, and sales framework, you know, how to be more effective in terms of how we inspire people to take action. And the person you might be inspiring, by the way, is yourself, and that's okay. Maybe you have 20 people to inspire, maybe you have yourself to inspire. But how do you get to that? Is that there's two core principles. And one is that you have to slow down to speed up. Let me say that again. You have to slow down to speed up. Now, does that feel counterintuitive to anybody, what I just said? Slow down. Aren't we running at speed? To the next thing, to the next thing. I go to a large company with SAP, you know, in Newtown Square, and I said to one of the high-level execs that I was meeting with, I said, when I'm here, I feel like I'm out of breath because I feel like I'm sprinting when I'm having a conversation because it's stuff, right? So what if we slowed down to speed up? And the other thing we believe and what we realize is that small nudges can lead to big things. And so those are the two things